everyone. I'm back at my sister's house, so I have a slightly different setup. The one problem is that I can't see you on the screen, and then I get self-conscious, but I want to make sure that everyone can hear me. Give me 1 second. Okay, good. Everyone can hear me, but I can't exactly see you completely, but I guess I'll have to... what am I doing? Okay. Hiya, Shadi Haza. And yeah, welcome everyone. Okay. So it's nice to have everyone here. And I do realize that I probably should not be obsessing over A-nark, but he just annoys me. And usually, like when I'm in a crappy mood, like picking on anarchists and reading Lenin both help alleviate my mood. So bullying anarchists is fun and reading Lenin is fun. And what better thing to do than to combine both of them? Don't you guys agree? Okay, so for a quick recap, Anark about a year ago made a video called "The State is Counter-Revolutionary." And he just had a lot of wrong stuff, and it didn't bother me. But for some odd reason, I was bored on Friday, and he made a dumb comment about Lenin. So then I went and did a reaction to that video for part 1, and it was so wrong that to finish that entire video, it took 6 hours because it was so wrong. Well, he didn't hide and wither away in shame, or at least try to figure out where he's wrong. He just further went on. And I think yesterday or maybe 2 days ago, he made a comment that said, "Oh, the United States also defeated the Nazis." And it just made my head explode. So because of that, I thought I would take down his first video, which is filled with extremely dumb stuff. And what really I feel bad for anarchists is that they have to read really boring people because they don't like Lenin. So they can't be reading funny people and having fun. They're just stuck with reading super boring people. Anyways, in this video, we might forward a little because he just goes on and on in the beginning about random Europeans that none of us care about, but whatever. Exactly. 27 million in Russia, and then number 2 is China. 27 million in the USSR, and then it was China where 25 million were killed. Okay, so with that, let's I'm going to forward through a lot of this because it's really sucky, but we'll see.
Anark here. Today's video will be focused upon a very important topic in leftist theory, namely the role and nature of the state in the revolutionary process. It would be an understatement to say that this has been a point of contention for a variety of committed socialists. Indeed, it represents the most significant early theoretical split in the left, one which has endured until this day.
Oh God, this is so boring. Hello, my friend from China. Okay, continuing.
We anarchists, the dissident anarchist was saying, are willing to work with the Bolsheviki if they will treat us right. But I warn you that we won't stand for suppression. If you attempt it, it will mean war between us. Berkman jumped on the platform. Let not this great hour be...
See, you have to deal with really boring... I guess Berkman, I don't know who... Oh, he's the ice cream, Emma Goldman's boyfriend. But oh God, okay. I'm just going to skip this because this is like really boring crap.
Exhilarating victory. Indeed, it must have seemed like the world revolution was just around the bend. However, unlike the leftists of 1917, we now have in hand the empirical outcomes of the state experiments of the 20th century.
And we don't have any empirical outcomes of anarchists in the 20th century because none of them were able to last more than 2 weeks. And ultimately, when you look at the alleged anarchists, oh, this is hilarious. I believe in Andalusia, they first outlawed currency in the 1930s, but then each commune had to then issue their own coupons, and it was a big comedy of errors. No. Okay, if you want to be bored by, we're not going to be discussing all the boring stuff. His point is absolutely not having to do with Alexander Berkman. What I am going to be debunking is when he is wrong about Marx and Lenin, because I don't care about stupid anarchists like Alexander Berkman, who A, dabbled in eugenics, and B, had some weird relationship with Edward Bernays. Oh, by the way, this is a very authoritarian stream. Personally annoying me gets you kicked out.
Thus, in the following series, I will argue for why we must reject a repetition of this historical cycle. First, I'll carry out a theoretical inspection of the state as an institution, and disentangle how the ideologies which cling to it have been corrupted so deeply. Then, in the following videos, I'll move on to inspect the historical record more closely, such that we can witness the degradation of these revolutionary projects in greater detail.
Okay, so for anarchists, they call it degradation because they read the New York Times. And they don't realize that the New York Times is going to frame whatever dictatorship of the proletariat does as negative. Like if the Bolsheviks or China, let's say that China cures cancer. The bourgeoisie newspaper is going to say it's China's curing cancer, but wait, is it curing too much cancer? And so it'll always paint it as a bad thing. Even with the Sandinistas, when they cured illiteracy in a few short months, if you look at the Christian Science Monitor from 1984, they're like, you're authoritarian. It wasn't worth the illiteracy. So the only thing this proves is the anarchists' inability to see through Western propaganda, which also, like, anyone who calls China or the USSR a failure means like they just don't understand what it means for kids to be in school and not working in mines and kids to be fed, which is not going to okay. Well, if no anarchist has never read the New York Times, then why are you guys repeating really, really stupid talking points and not recognizing reality? So if you act like you only read the New York Times and it's not, you don't make a difference, like I can't tell. So stop acting like you only read the New York Times. Well, that is true because capitalism doesn't like what do you call this high level initial investment. So that's why America doesn't have any high speed trains because it costs a lot of initial investment, and then they'll have to connect rural areas that are remote and isn't really profitable. So yeah, China's definitely not a capitalist country. It's just based on like white people being ignorant again, kind of like when British went to India and wrote all these insane stuff about weird cults. That's the exact same process. White people just don't care enough to learn what is the truth in China. And they also have an extremely racist assumption that all Chinese people are stupid and are sheep, so they can be oppressed by the government. So when you take out those racist assumptions, you'll realize that you guys know nothing. Okay, let's continue.
The tasks we have ahead of us are far too important to avoid speaking the truth out of fears of sectarianism. It's a solemn duty that we have to the people of our societies to bring something far more than just a margin.
Shut up. This is like irritating bloviating. Okay, that's why he triggers me, because he bloviates in the most annoying way. Okay.
Military and financial institutions through which the management of their own affairs, the control over their personal behavior, and the responsibility for their personal safety are taken away from the people and entrusted to others who, by usurpation or delegation, are vested with the powers to make the laws for everything and everybody, and to oblige the people to observe them, if need be, by the use of collective force. This definition includes almost every important aspect of the state, yet loses the territorial nature of Weber.
What? This is okay. So just because you call a state a collective and have little confederates or whatever, that doesn't mean you don't have a state. But whatever. This is such irritating bloviation.
Kropotkin, however, brings us full circle, synthesizing Malatesta and Weber. The state, he says, not only includes the existence of a power situated above society, but also of a territorial concentration, as well as the concentration in the hands of a few.
Okay, this is so stupid. What does he mean by above society? Essentially, a state is people who have a military and they can go bang, bang, bang. So it's like impossible for the state to stand above society. It can stand for one class of the society, like nobles or the bourgeoisie or the proletariat, but because you ultimately need the military to enforce anything, or some police power, some dude with some weapon, that other like use of mass force, that like ultimately you need the use of mass force for the state, and it can never stand above society, as in like it doesn't even okay, what the hell does it standing above society even mean? As Lenin would say, что это значит? Только Allah vedает. It means what does this mean? Only Allah knows. Только Allah vedает.
Of many functions in the life of societies. A whole mechanism of legislation and of policing has to be developed in order to subject some classes to the domination of others. We've left out the quibbles of these two thinkers, in which they develop distinctions. Such an entity is thus guaranteed to create safety, are taken away from the people and entrusted to others who, by usurpation or the existence of a power situated above society, of many functions in the life of societies. A whole mechanism of legislation and of policing has to be developed in order to subject some classes to the domination of others. We've left out the quibbles of these two thinkers, in which they develop distinctions between state and government. Although useful, they'll prove unnecessary for our inspection. Nonetheless, when we combine these definitions, we can now see what aspects in particular that the anarchist objects to in the institution of the state. It's not only Weber's legitimate use of violence within a territory which is objectionable, although that certainly comprises the core ultimatum for their paradigm. It's the fact that the state is a top-down schema of social enforcement.
Top-down schema of social enforcement. Что это значит? Только Allah vedает. This is where he does not know what democratic centralism is. Because with democratic centralism, what happens is that it goes, okay, so there's one level that creates some policy, I guess, it doesn't matter which level, but but it has to go upside down. So everyone in the same level, but then it has to push back down, and everyone in the down level has to agree and push it back up. So it basically more or less consolidates popular will. Like Lenin talks about this in his piece about constitutional illusions, where he mentions that a state can't like magically enforce people's will without a mechanism. And essentially, unless your state has some sort of democratic centralist practice or something similar to that, it won't be able to. But when you have that, you can go both up and down, so it doesn't have to be a top-down schema. If top-down schema means like you have a king, is like a caricature in his imagination of a king, and then like feudal lords and whatnot. I don't know if society is inherently top-down enforcement, though. I want to understand what these words mean a little bit better before I think about it. No, anarchist ideas are just boring, to be honest. I'm sorry. Yes, exactly. Top-down schema is when daddy tells you to go to bed.
Inherently predicated upon diminishing the direct control by the people, centralizing the judicial, military, and political functions of society into a body of privileged rulers.
Okay, this is he's describing like a feudal state in 1300s England. Yes, it was that way in 1300s England, but the state has changed since 1300s England because it's not 1300s England. But what you don't realize is that even when anarchs try to not create a state, they just call it by a different name. And also, centralization is not bad. I just need to do one example to explain how this is like such a narc thing. Okay, so let me show you something I discovered. What the hell is going on? Found it. Okay. Give me 1 second. So we know what the NED did, right? So let's look at the NED's Ukraine initiative. Oh my, where is it? Look at that. The National Endowment for Democracy wants to decentralize states. You know why? Because decentralizing this state allows them to, okay, so the way Brian Berlectic really explains it better than me, so check out the new atlas. But the way NED works is that they go and then they capture like one little section of the state. So in Myanmar, they captured like the local administrations of the Karen people or something like that. And they do this by just like flooding it with lots of money. And then when they captured that, they then start doing, what do you call it? Wrecking activities. And it's not unlike what Mitch McConnell did with Obama, except it involves like bombing and killing children and bombing schools. Yeah. And then they continue until they've like swallowed up the whole state. So decentralization is literally what the CIA wants you to do, because that way they can just like infiltrate an outpost and then kind of flood their money in. And that's exactly how they did it in Myanmar. They did it for a long time in many other countries. Actually, before Xi, they had some outposts in China, but then that all got bang bang. So China kind of ended up assassinating all the CIA agents. So if you see this, literally decentralization is what the National Endowment for Democracy wants you to do.
The very existence of such an entity is thus guaranteed to create a class structure in which the functionaries of the state and their collaborators operate above the people, transmuting the masses into subjects.
What on earth? Like, this is like not, this is literally like 1600s England or something, a state. Like, it is not a state that has actually exists that he can show an empirical example for. It is literally 1600s England, or thank you, Shmoopy, for timing out people who irritate me. I like it. Okay. Yeah, like 1600s England. I don't know. Like, no, it's more like 30. I bet you this is like the only state he's accurately describing is England before the Magna Carta, if that. So there is no data or explanation, because this is definitely not how the Soviets work. This is definitely not how China works. This is not how Cuba works, or Venezuela works, or Bolivia, or literally any state that's not, like, I don't even think modern day England works this way, the way he's describing it. It's a straw man. It's, as Stalin would say, anarchists love to attack their own imagination. And this state he's describing is his imagination.
Last aspect is particularly emphasized by Rudolf Rocker in his work Nationalism and Culture. Every power presupposes some form of human slavery. For the division of society into higher...
Okay, we care what the NED thinks is because look up the Contras. We don't want them to gang rape nuns, kidnap, behead teenagers, and enslave them. Or look up Jakarta or Pinochet, Chile. We don't want people thrown out of helicopters. So if they find a structure that you're advocating to be advantageous and you are not a total narc, you need to think about this a little carefully and wonder, why on earth does the NED want states to do it this way? Why are they pumping billions of dollars? And the answer will become incredibly clear. But you anarchists don't really care about people in other countries, especially the third world. So you won't even check. But that is the reason why we need to care. And please time him out.
And lower classes is one of the first conditions of its existence. The separation of men into castes, orders, and classes occurring in every power structure corresponds to an inner necessity for the separation of the possessors of privilege from the people.
Okay, this is a profound quote, but which state are you describing? And explain how this maps onto your stupid state that you're describing, otherwise you're fighting your imagination.
And although Rocker illustrates this beautifully in his own work, I'll leave that reading to you. If the origin and toxicity of the state interests you, you'll find plenty of food for thought in both the works Nationalism and Culture by Rudolf Rocker and The State, Its Historic Role by Peter Kropotkin. Instead, I intend to use these foundations to reformulate an argument I made in another one of my videos, The Case Against Hierarchy. The argument goes as follows. The state is a small group of people vested with the unitary control over the functions of governance.
The argument goes as follows, which means that's not what reality is. But But which state is he talking about? And if it's China, it's like almost 100 million people. I don't know what state he's talking about.
And the legally legitimate power to coerce others to abide by that control. Regardless of the temporary existence of selfless leaders, self-interested people will exist within.
Is he implying that Deng was self-interested? I mean, Deng basically took what was a lot similar to Stalin's 5-year plan and converted it into a 50-year plan, which he would know if he had read anything that Deng like. It's not like China keeps any of this secret. The China has 5-year plans every 5 years, and then they tell you what they're going to do. And because they have 5-year plans, because they have 5-year plans, they will. You can check to see if they've implemented it or not. And I don't think he understands exactly what Deng's theory. Well, it's more than it's a very interesting economic analysis that people, like very few white people, care enough to understand. But what Deng's legacy is that they basically flipped the entire trade relationship between the West and China. So the West could no longer make. It was a very brilliant way to make sure that China has access to all the manufacturing. And he actually, I don't know what to say, like, other than you just don't know what Deng did. And it's not hard because it's not like it's not that hard to figure out what Deng did. Okay. So let us let me just
the state. The power of the state is what allows those people to act in their self-interest. Therefore, it's in the interest of all the people that operate the state to perpetuate the power of the state. With this in mind, each time the power of the state is threatened, those who operate the state will have a tendency.
Okay, oh my god, is this the stupid June 6th, was it 88 or 89 event? Okay, so he does realize that in what the Western, okay, so I believe, I'm going to mess this up. Tiananmen Square, is that the proper way to pronounce this? So it was basically urban bourgeoisies getting mad that there were too many peasants coming to universities. And if you've I mean, it's ridiculous to say that the Tiananmen, there was a lot of dead people. Yes, they killed a lot of people. There was a lot of violence. The same way there's contra violence, but that has nothing. That has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not it was. Okay, so I am right. It is 1889. Correct. June 6, 1989. Okay. No, June 4th, 1989. Yeah. So, well, okay, hold on. Worse, there's this guy named Gene Sharp, and if you want to know, like, when something's a CIA coup or something, he literally wrote a book. I can't remember, but it's basically how to coup book. And he explains all his methodology. So if you were to read his book, you can always figure out if something's a color revolution or not. And he was there in 1989 in Beijing. Correct. They killed PLA soldiers, and a lot of them were like PLA soldiers are different than American soldiers. Like a lot of them come from very like rural areas. They're very young. It's very different. Yes, it was. And they've admitted to it. And then there's a really funny WikiLeaks. Wait, I can't remember. Can somebody find Gene Sharp's like regime change how to coup book and send it to them? Because I can't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, it was completely contra like behavior, like the Nicaraguan Contras. It was completely disgusting. And actually, no protesters were killed. And if you look at all the pictures in the West and you close up, you're like, those are bicycles, you idiot.
Tendency to stymie that threat. But every power structure.
Hold on. Yes, maybe that. But the thing is that why is he assuming that these I don't know 50 however many people were at this like stupid protest represents a country back then had at least 1 billion people? So the thing is that you are assuming that the popular will is no protesters were killed. No, the U.S. State Department admits this in WikiLeaks. Look up historically and WikiLeaks and Tiananmen, and I have it somewhere. The U.S. State Department literally has admitted to that. Okay, but this is okay. So this first thing is assuming this crap is a manifestation of popular will. You have not shown this. Especially with a country of 1 billion people. And of course, the assumption that all these Marxists and Maoists in China are unable to get rid of a government that they think is hostile. That is the most ridiculous thing ever. They can, like when you have 1 billion Marxists, they can totally figure out how to, if hypothetically they were ever being oppressed. But this is where you see the Anark. This is where you put the narc in the A-nark, because he is looking at some pictures. Oh, by the way, it's really funny how they had in the West, the video they showed was edited backwards because of some Spanish TV guy. Yeah, totally, to make everything look all jumbled. So you don't even know the right sequence of events. And he's assuming that this is a manifestation of popular will when it may or may not be a manifestation. Yes, please put this link, and Shmoopy is a mod, so he can definitely share this link with everyone.
That exists is competition for the state. Thus, the state stands at odds with any structure which may threaten its control over society.
Like, yeah, this is a sped up video, I'm sorry. Yes, like the Central Intelligence Agency or the US government. Yeah, so not all rebellions are good. You don't want the CIA to install Pinochet or a Suharto and have people thrown from helicopters and find mass graves. So what you see is this is just automatically assuming that he just like makes his case for a state. If you show them like, okay, here is the Abwehr, here's the CIA. So it keeps those who threaten its power away, like the Abwehr and the CIA, and that's a good thing.
The masses, however, have an inherent power in their numbers and in their primary function as the laborers that make society run. So, the state will always have an institutional tendency to view the masses as a threat to the unitary power of the state.
What are you talking about? No, it really depends on the state and its masses. So if the only time the masses are a threat is if the state is not meant to express the will of the people. Well, they can't, because they've lost, like, yesterday I showed you a tweet with Chomsky's examples, and all three of them, one was like some random thing in Germany, Italy, Spain, so they've all lost to fascists. Yes, exactly. This is what Marx was trying to say. Because of the way social relations work, the ones in power set up the state to keep the social relations the way it is and stopping it from change. Exactly. Okay. Do you want to? I can send you a link and you can come on. Here, let me just send you a link via WeChat. I just sent you a link via WeChat. If you hold on. Very few people, the same amount of English people that can read Chinese.
And therefore, the state will always seek to control and suppress the latent power of the masses, except when it serves the interests of the state.
Latent power of the masses. Which masses? If it's Nazi, if it's fascist, yes, please control their latent power. They don't need it. So then you have to check what is in the interest of this particular state, and if it's this is like really just making my argument. I mean, yeah, it's just like not questioning. It's just assuming that the state is always sinister without proving it, and it's not. There are different states have different interests.
This formulation alone guarantees an antagonism between the people and the institution of the state.
No, it does not. If the state is meant to diffuse the will of the people, there is no antagonism. The antagonism only occurs when the state is not created, or the state is created against diffusing the will of the people.
Centralized, vesting control over the organs of coercion and violence, seeking to establish and maintain a set of class hierarchies which bolster its own power. Just starting from the simple assumptions that people sometimes act in their own self-interest, that the state is comprised of people.
Okay, this is what we call some sort of fallacy. It's a genetic fallacy, maybe. It's like, oh, all atoms are molecules. All molecules are this, and that's why everything looks like a brick or whatever. It's no, these people. Okay, so the state is just not a group of people. A state is something that lasts longer than any of the person in the state. Just a state is not when you have a lot of people together. It's just not that. And this is where his fundamental assumption that the state is at odds with the people is just wrong. And notice, you can't really disprove or prove this, because this is all him arguing me about their imagination. Oh, they're in fact worse than right-wing libertarians, because half the time, at least with right-wing libertarians, I can count them to always oppose bombing Yemen. I don't know about left-wing people. Like, you can always count on right-wing libertarians, and so sometimes they can even be worse.
and that the state is vested with the power to coerce society, it's a guaranteed outcome that this affair of subjugation will take place over a long enough timeline. As Rocker said, every power presupposes some form of human slavery.
Huh? This is just making up words. Every power. What is, if slavery is daddy making me go to bedtime or something, like, yes, you might have to do something you don't like throw stuff in the garbage as opposed to on the floor, or like not pee on the floor or whatever. Like, but I see it. Okay, I'll share it. Give me 1 second. But that does not mean the state is I don't see it. Okay, I'm looking for it, but oh, I see it now. Okay. Oh, okay. I see. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This article is a good one. Okay. I see it. Oh, and I see I see a video. I'm downloading the video. Give me a second. So the state is not just so this just is making up words about slavery when you don't understand what, or maybe he does. Like, it's just nonsense. There's nothing in this to prove that it maps onto reality. Theory is only useful as it can map onto reality. So, for example, if we're doing the theory of addition, let's see, I have 5 fingers. So these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 can map onto reality. And if I add 5 more fingers, we have 10. And so it maps onto reality. So it's only useful if it can be used to describe reality. This is not mapping onto any reality.
The only conceivable counterargument that a benevolent leadership, which does not act in their own self-interest, may sit in the seats of power, neglects a simple reality. All humans die eventually.
What? Wait, what the hell is this Tito thing? Tito was awesome. Huh? Okay, I guess that answers the question I had the other day where Tito was buried, apparently in a tomb. So what? What is he like? Okay, no. You know, like, it's really funny. If you ever let anarchists talk long enough, 9 out of 10 times they'll either accidentally recreate Yugoslavia or accidentally recreate the Soviet Union. I mean, yeah, so Yugoslavia was beautiful. And it's kind of a lot of, I hope I'm not wrong, but I do think that Deng also took what was good from Tito's Yugoslavia when he made his model. Yeah, thank God, inshallah. But what? This makes no sense. So is he saying that, is he admitting that at least Tito was good? I don't know. It seemed random with Tito. Okay.
And once those benevolent dictators die, the reins...
Oh my God. Holy God. This is what we call a narc. This is what we call a narc. Does he not? Oh Lord. I don't want to relitigate Yugoslavia, so I'm just gonna, you guys, we're gonna have a really nice Yugoslavia episode one day with all the parts of the war, but this is stupid and annoying, and I don't want to interrupt, so I'll just pretend that, just remember, I know, I'll just put a warning that all of it is wrong, okay?
Will be handed back over to a new group of human beings, turning the state, on a long enough timeline, into a game of Russian roulette, with the future of the masses lying in the balance. It gets worse, however. It's not only that individuals in power often seek to act in their own self-interest. nor is it the inherent tendency of the state to create and perpetuate class structures by its nature. It's also the tendency of even well-intentioned human beings, given a particular tool, to see the application of that tool as the solution to all problems. This cognitive bias is sometimes called the law of the instrument, or Maslow's hammer.
Oh God. Okay. Lenin, stay out of Lenin. Just like, I would not be like making fun of you if you just kept Lenin out of everything. Like, I don't take anything else personally. Just like, yeah. If you start, I get really, really upset when you start dissing Lenin. That's not allowed in my mind. I bet you it's probably true. Lenin was not. I know that, and I am taking, okay. I am taking a course called Mao Zedong Thought so that I can be qualified to talk about Mao, but I don't feel comfortable enough because I haven't finished taking the course. So that's why I understand your point, by the way. Lenin was like everyone's daddy or good uncle, daddy, uncle, grandpa. But yeah, it is a good course you can take at this university where they go over it's a university in China. I'll send it to you. It's about his philosophy, his economics, his policies, etc., etc. Okay, well, I've given you the link to come on stream. So just click via WeChat. So just click and come and discuss. So I know I gave you the link. Click on the link and come on stream on WeChat. So yeah, I get a little upset with this. Oh, you did? Okay, that's great. Okay. So yeah, no, you don't. So with Lenin, so they'll say that the leaders had all these. Okay. So the first thing about the Bolsheviks that we need to remember is, as Alexander Solzhenitsyn said, the very first Bolshevik cabinet had 17 Jews, 1 Russian, 1 Armenian, and 1 Georgian. So once you're informed that the cabinet had 17 Jews, 1 Russian, you kind of understand where all these stupid, non-realistic things about them being secretly evil and wanting to secretly benefit everyone because there's 17 Jews, 1 Russian, 1 Georgian, 1 Armenian, according to Alexander Solzhenitsyn. I can't pronounce his name, but that's where it comes from. So, oh, yes, thank you. Okay, so I guess we're going to have a better... Hi, thank you so much for coming. How are you doing? Thank you. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, give me 1 second. Let me just call you on WeChat and then I'll hook you on. Give me 1 second. Hello? Can you hear me? Yeah, I can. Give me 1 second though. I need to put your audio in, okay? No. Hold on. Give me 1 more second. Let me call you back, okay? Okay. Give me 1 more second. I'm going to have to figure out. I'm just going to have to route his audio in. So, yeah. Give me 1 second. Okay, while we're looping the audio, let's see if he can come. Yeah, give me a second. I need to update some hardware. Okay, give me one more second. Let me see if I can. Oh, I know, I'll go low tech. Okay, I'm just gonna go low tech now. Give me one more second. Hello? Can you hear him? Can you say something? Hello? Can you say something? Hello? Can you say something? I can't hear you even on WeChat. Oh, weird. Okay. It says, are you sure that your microphone is... I can hear you when I call you on WeChat on the computer. Let's try this again. Hello? Okay, so until we can get him, we're just gonna have to deal. Okay, we're just gonna continue with this video, and we will. Okay, we'll try this.
It's famously contained in the pithy adage that, to the hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And we shouldn't be shocked that this cognitive bias occurs enough to have earned such a reputation. Humans have an inherent desire to solve the problems that lie in front of them. And given a single tool to solve that problem, they'll have a tendency to attempt and discover every way that that particular tool could conceivably overcome that particular problem. Every challenge that arises is then reframed as a question of how it's a problem for the wielder, and mutated by this frame into something which the wielder of the tool perceives as solvable through their means. Such a situation is even more perverse in light of the fact that the state's primary tools are coercion and the manufacture of consent. Within its very nature, it is thus a paternalistic and chauvinistic entity.
What?
Bound to view all...
Okay, what is he talking about? The state's very nature. Okay, yes, it is the state's very nature is coercion, and sometimes coercion can be good. So if you coerce a kula, like a slave owner, to say no more slaves, I'm going to shoot you if you have slaves, that is good. You should use that coercion to do that. Or when Lenin said, oh, deport and shoot those white army prostitutes who are mercenaries for capital, that is another excellent use of the state power of coercion. That's like getting rid of the KKK, shooting them. So yes, the state has coercion, but we just think that not all coercion is bad. So if the state says no genocide, no slavery, and you're like, don't coerce me, well, no, you need to be coerced to stop committing slavery and stop committing genocide. So it's just, this is them not understand. Like, this is literally them unable to think past themselves. So a lot of these coercive things that he's talking about is awesome. Exactly. Well, what you realize is that one of the first acts of Lenin was banning child labor, mandating only like a maximum of 8-hour workdays, and then requiring an employees committee to approve of the safety equipment and not trusting the management on the safety equipment. And that's why these idiots are crying authoritarian because I can't employ child slaves. But no, you need You need super authoritarianism to crack down on these mother bleeping companies.
All those who are subject to its will as unruly when they disobey, and useful only when they abide.
Well, it really depends on the rule that they disobey, like the rule about not committing slavery or not committing genocide. That's a great rule that they should obey, and you should crack down if they disobey.
It's an entity in a perpetual process of moral decline, a warden eternally destined to betray its charge.
Betray its charge. I don't know. I don't think stopping psychos from committing genocide is betraying your charge. And I don't know what is this nonsense. Oh, I bet you.
Left to its own devices over a long enough time, it can only.
God, is this 1956 Hungary? Oh, it is, isn't it? Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. The State Department said that there were. What did they say? Anti-Slavic, anti-Russian, anti-communist, anti-Semitic, but on the plus side, they were pro-Western, pro-German, pro-Christians. On top of that, they were protesting about too many Jews being in high places. So yeah, this is 1956 Hungary. Wow. Pathetic.
Be guaranteed to represent its own interests and the joint interests of its most powerful collaborators, not the exploited.
The most powerful collaborators of communist Hungary, as the CIA put it, was fanatical communists returning from German concentration camps, i.e. Jews. In fact, the first leader, Matthias Rakoczy, he was Jewish. Actually, the second leader was also Jewish. Giro, I can't pronounce his name. But yeah, Janos, the most prominent, this is a time where the collaborators of communist Hungary were good people and the dissidents were fascists. Literally, they served in Hitler's armies.
The very act of centralizing power is thus an act of violence against the workers.
No, it's not. It is an act of stopping violence against the workers, like by consent. This is really stupid. Oh, God.
So long as the state is allowed to exist, worker emancipation is impossible. In the same way that the class antagonisms of capitalism can't be eliminated while the means of production are controlled by the capitalists. Class abolition can then only ever hope to succeed if it corresponds to an abolition of centralized power.
Not if it allows the NED to come and coup your country and kill everything that moves or whatever psychotic stuff they do. This is what happens when you don't understand what imperialism, the power of the dollar, like you just don't understand what it can do and what it can destroy. Like, oof. Yeah. Okay, let's continue.
Such a statement is not a preference. It's a foundational requirement for the next phase of human development. And all attempts to make the state into a vehicle for liberation are misguided negotiations with a potent counter-revolutionary force.
I disagree, because I can give you any of the 1,000 examples where that was not what had happened. Like communist Hungary, it protected fascists from killing people that they normally killed. It was the opposite of a counter-revolutionary force. Romania, Bulgaria, all of them. So this is just wrong.
So, if all of this is true, why did leftists ever convince themselves that it could be otherwise? Well, we will now inspect what theoretical and rhetorical aspects of leftist ideology led to the rot in the authoritarian foundations, so that we might better understand what created their repeated failures in a practical context. First, lying at the center of the authoritarian left conceptualization is the notion that any socialist project managed by the people is too weak and too aimless to defend itself from sabotage, and that instead of the people
Okay, so here he is just pretending that any successful state is not managed by the people. So why does he think that, and why does he think that it's not managed by the people? Like, what you see, like, this is just non-factual assumptions that you can't really refute, because this is just not based on any analysis of who managed the Soviets for like 1920 something till 1953, because he does not know.
governing themselves in the interim, the state will need to rapidly centralize power, then wield that power benevolently in the interests of the masses.
That's what? That's like not understanding what fascism is and what it was doing in the years of 1920 something to 1945. My God.
This particular affair, it must be said, is not strictly contained anywhere within Marxist literature. In fact, Marx said something quite contrary at the First International, namely that the emancipation of the working classes must be conquered by the working classes themselves. That the struggle for the emancipation of the working classes means not a struggle for class privileges and monopolies, but for equal rights and duties, and the abolition of all class rule.
Okay, he kind of did say this, but the thing is that, for example, if you're baking a cake, you just can't put all the ingredients in the oven and hope it turns out to be a cake. You have to go by a step-by-step process. So first you have to figure out, okay, how are we going to get rid of these cycles with all the guns? Oh, then how are we going to get rid of this, that? How are we going to grow enough food? Because food is not magical and it takes X weeks or whatever, so on and so forth. And so this is the ultimate goal of a state. Ultimate goal of everyone, I guess, for the world, but it's like, it doesn't mean you can magic yourself into this thing. And Marx understood this way better if he only read it, but he didn't.
However, some of Marx's rhetorical choices and early theoretical emphasis left the notion of what should be done and by what practice struggle should take place sufficiently vague, making the threat of co-option inevitable.
Okay, rhetoric means absolutely nothing. This is based on some dumb bourgeoisie assumption that language shapes reality. It only shapes reality once your material conditions are taken out. And no, it has, and we're not worshiping Marx like a god. What happened is that Marx's theory was used to describe their conditions in, say, Tsarist Russia or Republic China. And then once it helped them understand the problem and then figure out the way to fix the problems. So yeah, like he's kind of, maybe he takes these things like they're gospel or Bibles or whatever, but that's not how Marx's theories became popular. It became popular because it was good at expressing the conditions of a certain sector of the population in places.
The most pertinent of these rhetorical choices was that Marx called for a stage in which there would be a dictatorship of the proletariat.
Oh my God. I've written an entire article about this. A dictatorship, as Lenin would say, or Marx or anyone else, is unrestrained by any law or anything. So a dictatorship of the proletariat is unrestrained rule of the class known as the proletariat. So in modern terms, it is when the will of the people can never be overruled by capital. So let's say that the people decide we're not going to frack in this land. Well, in America, you're going to have okay. I'm just trying to see. Found it. Okay, in America, you're going to have the Koch brothers write like preemption laws that will then negate the will of the people. And in a dictatorship of the proletariat, the will of the people always rules. So literally, he does not understand what these words mean. And to him, he's trained to react to scary sounding words. So instead of actually understanding, oh, what did Marx mean by dictatorship of the proletariat, and why did he not use democracy? It's because obviously the same reason why freedom and democracy have been stolen by the bourgeoisie. So he wanted people to understand what he meant very clearly. But even then, what the hell is he doing? Okay, even then, this is like so idiotic.
But Marx almost certainly did not mean that a centralized bureaucracy with complete control should domineer the workers and the previous bourgeois alike. Although it's true that he advocated centralization even as early as 1848 in the Communist Manifesto,
Sorry, I just kind of had to take a minute's break. But so yeah, this is really just, oh my God, this is just stupid stuff. But no, okay. So and then now he's gonna next not understand what the critique of the Gotha program is. That's gonna be hilarious. But let's.
by 1891, in his critique of the Gotha program, Marx was brutally criticizing the German socialists for their belief that socialism could be achieved through a paternalistic state, saying, "Free state, what is this? It is by no means the aim of the workers, who have got rid of the narrow mentality of humble subjects, to set the state free. Freedom consists in converting the state from an organ superimposed upon society into one completely subordinate to it. And today, too, the forms of state are more free or less free to the extent that they restrict the freedom of the state." We can see by this that
We can see by this that you did not read any of it. Let's see. The Gotha program was some random like German socialist making up like their manifesto, like the labor does, and they had really stupid stuff on it. But this is literally him not reading it. So let's see, where do we start? Let's see. Okay, so in part four, this is him not reading part 4. First of all, according to section 2, the German Workers' Party strives for the free state. Free state, what is this? It is by no means the aim of workers who rid of the narrow mentality of humble subjects to set the state free. So basically, as in, what? Yeah, it's the opposite of what he said. In the German Empire, the state is almost as free as in Russia. Freedom consists in converting the state from an organ superimposed upon society, as in a bourgeoisie dictatorship or a monarchy. Marx says freedom consists in converting a state from onto one completely subordinated to it. And today, the forms of state are more free and less free to the extent they were, as in, what he's talking about is like in France in the late 1700s and Germany in the 18 something 15, it went from absolute monarchies to bourgeoisie hybrids. So he's talking about how the bourgeoisie converted the state from absolute monarchies to like whatever it was in Germany and in France. Like in France, they called it allegedly a republic, but it was basically a bourgeoisie state. So he literally, Marx is not saying what this. Okay, let's continue. The German Workers' Party, at least if it adopts, shows that its socialist ideas are not even skin deep, in that instead of treating existing society as a basis of the existing state or the future state in the case of future society, it treats the state rather as an independent entity that possesses its own intellectual, ethical, and libertarian basis. So reading the second paragraph after the one he cites shows that Marx is actually criticizing him and he needs to look at a mirror. So yeah, it's actually literally what is this entire video. Like Marx was criticizing this entire video, and the irony is that he cites from that section, but then the next section, like it just means that literacy doesn't really help all that much apparently with anarchists, because he really did not understand what Marx was explaining.
That the notion that worker control meant centralized state control was certainly not a view held by the end of Marx's life.
How do you know this? We don't, I mean, this is so stupid. Let's see. I mean, okay, so he kind of explains the difference between a vulgar democracy and actual democracy, and he definitely wanted the proletariat to take over the state apparatus, especially if you read about his critique of the Paris Commune in the 1872 conference. Was it 1872 or 1870, or whatever. Like actually read both, like where they kick out Bakunin. That was, they explained that the fault of the commune was not taking over, smashing all the bourgeoisie power and taking over state power. So yeah, so this is like literally, this is not knowing history, not understanding how to read, and what the heck. Okay, this is like so narky.
Indeed, the only state that Marx could see as consistent with worker control was one completely subordinated to the direct will of the workers. In fact, in Critique of the Gotha program,
i.e. the dictatorship of the proletariat. So you even just mentioned the definition of the dictatorship of the proletariat, but you just didn't recognize it because you're so stupid.
he excoriated the German Social Democrats for the notion that they should even presume to educate the masses.
No, it was the German Workers' Party. The Social Democrats came after the 1870, I believe. I could be wrong. But no, he what does he? Where I don't know where he gets this because I cannot. Okay. So no. Oh my God. Okay, no. Oh Lord. Okay, so later he says equal elementary education. Elementary is okay. It's basically like Marx talking about how their program's not specific enough, and it's really like totally not. Oh my God, this is the most insane reading comprehension ever. Okay, I just don't want to waste my time on this, but basically read section 4 of the Gotha program, and he literally doesn't misunderstands or ununderstands what Marx means by it. It's like, I bet you it's like, because often German doesn't have apostrophes, so a proletariat's dictatorship probably got translated to dictatorship of the proletariat because it doesn't quite have apostrophes. So I wonder if that leads to confusion. Who knows? But this is so wrong.
Government and church should rather be equally excluded from any influence on the school. The state has need, on the contrary, of a very stern education by the people. So, where did the authoritarian tendency arise if not from Marx? Well, upon inspection of the
Okay, this is literally not understanding what you read in the next paragraph. I can't have. Elementary education by the state is altogether objectionable. Defining by a general law the expenditures on elementary schools, qualifications of the teaching staff, blah, 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 as done in the United States, supervising the fulfillment of these legal specifications by state inspectors is very different thing from appointing the state as the educator of the people. Government and church should rather be equally excluded from any influence on the school, particularly indeed in the Prusso-German Empire. And one should not take refuge in the rotten subterfuge that one is speaking of the state of the future. We have seen how matters stand in this respect. The state has need, on the contrary, of a very stern education by the people. So he is equal elementary. What is the idea behind these words? So the German, let me just quickly. The German Workers' Party demands the intellectual and ethical basis of the state. 1, universal and equal elementary education by the state, universal compulsory school attendance, free instruction. So he is critiquing literally this program and the words they used. So equal elementary school. Is it believed that in present day society, education can be equal for all classes? So we've actually gone through this in last week's episode with Late Night Lenin, but it's about the difference between state schools and class schools that doesn't really 100% match in modern society, but that's kind of what Marx is talking about. This is literally the not getting
historical record. The truest forerunner to the authoritarian ideology appears to be an individual named Louis-Auguste Blanqui. Blanqui, an early French socialist revolutionary, this ideology place. It was far more important that the previous ruling class was defeated at all costs. This is not the last we'll hear of such a viewpoint, although its next adherent.
Okay, let's look at first of all, I don't think he understands. This is the good thing, is if you read Lenin, you don't do wrong things like this, because he explains everything. So let me read what Lenin says about blankists. Okay, let's see. Blankism by Vladimir Lenin. Louis Blanc, blah, 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 changing his stand from that of a class struggle to that of petty bourgeois illusions. Illusions adorned with would-be socialist phraseology, but in reality tended to strengthen the influence of the bourgeoisie over the proletariat. Louis Blanc looked to the bourgeoisie for assistance and hoped in inspired hopes that in others that the bourgeoisie could help the worker in the matter of labor organizations. This vague term purporting to express socialist tendencies. Blankism has now gained the upper hand in right-wing social democracy. In the organizing committee party in Russia by all these random czarist people who are now leading the Petrograd Soviet Workers and Soldiers Deputies, and were also the leaders of the All Russia Conference of the Soviets, have taken the same stance as Louis Blanc. On all major issues of present-day political life, these leaders who occupy approximately the position of international centrist trend represented by Kautsky, Languet, Turati, and many others have embraced the petty bourgeoisie views of Louis Blanc. Take, for instance, the question of the war. The proletarian standpoint in this matter consists of a definite class characterization of war and an irreconcilable hostility to imperialist war. That is, to a war between a group of capitalist countries, no matter whether monarchies or republics, for the division of capitalist spoils. The petty bourgeoisie viewpoint differs from the bourgeoisie one, outright justification of the war, blah, 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 in that the petty bourgeoisie renounces annexation, condemns imperialism, and demands from the bourgeoisie that it cease to be imperialistic while keeping within the framework of the world imperial relations and the capitalistic system of economy. Confining himself to this mild, innocuous, wishy-washy declamation, the petty bourgeoisie in practice trail helplessly behind the bourgeoisie in sympathizing with the proletariat in words. Okay, let's see. Can a grown-up person be content with what people think of themselves without comparing it to what they do? It is not. So it seems like Lenin seems to think of Blanc as like mostly empty, intolerable social phrases. In practice, in the worst sort, so it seems like, and I trust Lenin's assertion way more than this Anark. So, he seems to not even know what Blankism is. And I actually don't care enough to know what it is, but like I said, I trust Lenin's assertions way more.
Parents will not call themselves Blankists. With these foundations in place, we can now turn our inspection to the next and perhaps most significant development in the authoritarian leftist ideology, calling itself Marxist-Leninism. This ideology, basing itself on the thought of Vladimir Lenin, would animate a great many revolutionary struggles and ideological offshoots to come. However, we don't have sufficient time to inspect all of those. Instead, we'll look at the most significant of these offshoots, Marxist-Leninist Maoism, in part 3 of this video series. For now, let's start at the beginning. This quote from Lenin's work, What is to be Done, is quite instructive of the attitude he takes toward revolutionary organization. Class political consciousness can be brought to the workers only from without. That is, only from outside the economic struggle, from outside the sphere of relations between the workers and the employers. Leninism is predicated on a fundamental lack of faith in the workers to
Oh my God, this is so wrong.
organize themselves and to arrive upon a coherent conception of their class position without a party to lead them.
Oh boy. Okay. No, it's not. I mean, Lenin had probably the most amount of faith in workers as anyone, more than anyone else in the world. But the thing is that this is just literally not understanding the situation. So you guys decide, should I read from What is to be Done, or should I quickly read from the history of the CPU-SU so that we kind of, like this one just like summarizes quickly what was going on with the Rabocha Dialog group and the Economist group and the young. Let's just do this one because it's stupid. Okay. So let's see. I mean, literally not understanding. Okay, so and basically, what is to be done is what is Lenin's idea from. Oh, sorry, Iskra, which means spark, is Lenin's idea from what is to be done. Okay, so when when the older Bolsheviks like Lenin and all the other older people were sent to Siberia to exile, these like youngins came. So let me read this. The economists maintain that the workers should engage only in economic struggle. As to the political struggle, that should be left to the liberal bourgeoisie. So the economists wanted workers to only strike for higher wages, but not work on overthrowing the Tsar, because they thought that the liberal bourgeoisie should work on overthrowing the Tsar. And Lenin's like, okay, this is really stupid, because if you wait for the liberals to overthrow the Tsar, they will never do that because they're liberals. So that is what he's talking about in the economic struggle. So let me just, so you understand. Okay. So in Lenin's eyes, this tenet was a desertion of Marxism and a denial of a necessity for an independent political party of the working class, an attempt to convert the working class into a political appendage of the bourgeoisie. So in fact, if Anark had read What is to be Done, he would be realizing that Lenin wanted to create a party just for the workers. So without the bourgeoisie. So it's the opposite, like 100% opposite. Like this is so wrong. I don't even know like how. This is like saying that the grass is orange. No. The grass is neon pink. Kind of wrong. And saying that grass doesn't photosynthesize or something like that's a level of wrong. Because this was precisely the opposite. Because Lenin trusted the workers, he said that their struggle should not be confined just to the economic struggle, but it should come from without more than from the relationship between the worker and the boss. By the way, I do have Что делает in Russian now. Let me just I can't read. My Russian's not that good, but I like having this book in Russian. How does it go? Let's see. And this is adorable. This is like a page of Iskra. Can you guys see it? No, you can't. Okay, now you can. That means spark. Okay, so it says first page of the Gazette Iskra, number 4. Where do we start? With what do we begin, or something like that? Okay, I see now. So this is literally getting what is to be done 100% opposite. But let me just read a little bit more. In 1899, a group of economists, random people, who later became cadets, issued a manifesto in which they opposed revolutionary Marxism and insisted the idea of an independent political party of the proletariat and of the independent political demands by the working class be renounced. The economists held that the political struggle was a matter for the bourgeoisie liberal, and that as far as workers were concerned, the economic struggle against the employers was enough for them. When Lenin acquainted himself with this opportunist document, he called a conference of Marxist political exiles living in vicinity. 17 of them met and, headed by Lenin, issued a trenchant protest denouncing the views of the economists. This protest was written by Lenin and circulated among the Marxist organizations all over the country and played an outstanding part in the development of Marxist ideas and of the Marxist Party in Russia. The Russian economists advocated the same views as opponents of Marxism in the social democratic parties abroad, who were known as Bernsteinites, that is, followers of the opportunist Bernstein. Lenin's struggle against economists was therefore at the same time a struggle against opportunism in an international scale. The fight against economism, the fight for the creation of an independent political party of the proletariat, was chiefly waged by Iskra, the illegal newspaper founded by Lenin. Okay, so now let's just read what that section from What Is to Be Done, where he misclassifies Lenin is. Let's see. I'm trying to remember. Is it in the spontaneous? Let me see. No, yeah, it's not in the. Let's see. Let me just rewind a little bit.
Blanqui did not attempt to conceive of the socialist future, nor when, how, and where the transition from vanguard rule to worker control might take place. It was far more important that the previous ruling class was defeated at all costs. This is not the last we'll hear of such a viewpoint, although its next adherents will not call themselves Blanquists. With these foundations in place, we can now turn our inspection to the next and perhaps most significant development in the authoritarian leftist ideology, calling itself Marxist-Leninism. This ideology, basing itself on the thought of Vladimir Lenin, would animate a great many revolutionary struggles and ideological offshoots to come. However, we don't have sufficient time to inspect all of those. Instead, we'll look at the most significant of these offshoots, Marxist-Leninist Maoism, in part 3 of this video series. For now, let's start at the beginning. This quote from Lenin's work, What Is to Be Done, is quite instructive of the attitude he takes toward revolutionary organization. Class political consciousness can be brought to the workers only from without. That is, only from outside the economic struggle, from outside the sphere of relations between the workers and the employers. Leninism is predicated on a
Oh my God. So let me find it. It's definitely not. I thought it was going to be in the spontaneity section, but it's not. Hold on. Let's see. Oh, I know where it is. Class. No, it's not in that section. Let me figure this out. Okay, hold on. Okay, let me just do this. I'm just going to do a shortcut. Did Lenin even say this in What Is to Be Done? I can't find it right now, but let's see if this is even a... Okay, he did say it. Oh, okay, trade union section. Okay. Yeah, good luck. That's the narc in Anark. Yeah, class. Okay, first of all, oh my God, it's not an entire sentence. So let's, he is actually getting half of a sentence, which is which is kind of bad faith, but let's see. The Martinov formula has some value for us, not because it illustrates Martinov's aptitude for confusing things, but because it pointedly expresses the basic error that all economists commit, namely their conviction that it is possible to develop the class political consciousness of the workers from within, so to speak, from their economic struggle. The next sentence, hold on. I.e., by making this struggle the exclusive, or at least the main starting point, by making it exclusive, or at least the main basis. Such a view is radically wrong. Piqued by our polemics against them, the economists refuse to ponder deeply over the origins of these disagreements, with the results that we simply cannot understand one another. It is as if we spoke in different tongues. Now, here's where this quote begins. Class consciousness can be brought to the workers only from without. That is, only from outside. Okay, only from without. He means that is only from outside the sphere of economic struggle, from outside the sphere of relationships between workers and employers. The sphere from which alone it is possible to obtain this knowledge is the sphere of relationships of all classes and strata to the state and government, and the sphere of interrelations between all classes. So he's saying that the workers need to be involved in all spheres of society, and they need to understand how all of these, not just from the, this is 100% backwards and wrong. And oh my God, if he weren't named A-nark, I would suspect he was like a total narc for quote not, or maybe he doesn't understand what he reads. I don't know. But this is so wrong, because this is not what was going on. Like I said, and with that, I think I'm going to have to head out today. But let me know what you think. And let's see. By the way, we have some fun. Let's see. Just give me one more minute to... you guys want me to put the old song on? Because some people like the other song more. And so I don't know what to do with these songs. But let's put this promo. It'll be fun before we do the song. I'll say Slobodu narodu, smrti fasizmu.